Our next session of the day is a panel discussion. This panel discussion is about open banking and partnerships, the new gateway to banking. Now, banks have to innovate and they are expected to work with fintechs to co-create on various use cases. Until recently, the financial information of the customer was centrally. However, the balance is shifting. In the age of open banking, the focus has shifted to the consumer. And now more value-added services can be delivered to a large number of customers. In fact, the bank is wherever the customer is, as long as the customer is enabled to make a payment using any device and from anywhere. Hence, the partnership of banks is now more relevant than ever before to reach customers. And joining us for this session are Mr. Anand Kumar Bajaj. This panelist is Ms. Mabel Chacko, co-founder and CEO of Open Financial Technologies. We welcome you to this panel, Mabel. And joining them, we have Mr. Anurag Sinha, CEO and Director, FPL Technologies. Welcome to the show, Anurag.
Thank you.
And completing the panel, we have with us Shashank Mehta, General Manager, Razorpay Software Private Limited. Welcome to the discussion, Shashank.
Thank you.
And with that, I will hold this session. Mr. Anand, over to you, Mr. Anand.
Thank you so much, my friend. Warm welcome to all of you world over. And here we are about to discuss the world's oldest profession converting into the latest fad, and how things are changing, how things are shaping, and what people are breaking legs about, including our friend Anurag, who just broke his leg last week in Pune. While the segments are overlapping or missing yet, I would say, the journey of host-to-host to API to SDK to open, or the new word, the new normal, NEO. If one draws a Venn diagram, one would see that the right proliferation of these modules can actually help bring financial liberation to the world, most of the world, at a pace faster than COVID came and went back. Almost gone, trust me. That's it. If Visa and Master taking payment gateway to where consumer were is not open banking what it was indeed the first of its kind of taking banking to where people are and helping them do the e-commerce. While Zinza, Australia breaking the code and achieving $400 million Australian dollars in 8 weeks time, which was probably their annual target, what did their stash break by getting an awesome UX is something to ponder over, targeting the millennials. Or the Starling Bank, a very interesting model, changing banking for good, the tagline that says, by the 30-year experienced CEO, Anne Boden, who is up to change the banking all she did all throughout her life for 30 years. So interesting contours shaping up. The plague, the models in the US with screen scraping, wealth management support to a very different segment, and bought over by Visa at $5.3 billion, which is 2x the last valuation they did in the private round. What is happening in this case? How is the profession changing with the N26 facing the challenges that they are facing regarding boundaries in the no boundary banking ecosystem that is shaping up, or what we actually
Hi, everyone.
Hi there, this is Anurag. I'm co-founder CEO of Scale Technologies, like FinTech and Tech Entrepreneur. And we run two platforms. One is product and one store, which helps people, track the credit score and understand about it and learn about the credit fund. We also run product called One Tap, which is a label software that is built often in partnership with banks for investment.
And the India model contrast. And also you mentioned about the embedded model with regard to Swiggy. I would want you to throw some light here. And where is the competition coming really from?
Sure, Anand. So it's a common myth that, PSD2 is what brought in open banking. Whereas, if you evaluate the global markets, you would see that it was always the new evolving business models that, drove the requirement for open banking, and fintechs, found out the need in the market and started catering to segments where banks were primarily looking at fund management and growing, and they're great at what they do in managing funds. So cut down to India, it's again a similar story that we see here. Rather than regulation coming in and driving this entire thing, it is the new business models that are coming, and banks recognizing the fact that they can use a partnership with a fintech to reach out to new segments of customers, and and rather than the otherwise traditional feet on street model of acquiring new current account customers. And they're also able to reach out to a different set of customers that would have otherwise always resided on another form of banking altogether. So that's where the shift that we've seen in the Indian market compared to what the UK market was. Of course, market demand, and then PSD2 regulations coming in, and then the entire open banking norms and things going that way. Compared to India, where definitely market demand is there, plus fintechs recognizing, banks recognizing these kind of different models that they can work along with. And if you look at banking partnerships also, like this is my fourth fintech startup, so cut down to the very first startup I did. It was a very different ball game. It was, tenders and RFPs, and banks were trying to build things on their own. And down there, you would be, if you're a startup trying to work with a bank, you would be participating with one of the tech giants in an RFP process and doing just your bit in the entire scheme of things. Cut down to today, because of, and there have been different models that India has seen, be it on the prepaid cards, be it on the prepaid cards, or be it on things around lending and payment gateways. So there has been a strong way in which bank partnerships with fintechs have evolved. And soon, like I mentioned, we are going into an embedded fintech model wherein the fintechs are now, you would see every other company around you having a fintech arm, and say Swiggy launching a Swiggy wallet, Swiggy Money, or more recently Shopify launching a savings account for their base of customers using called Shopify Balance in partnership with Stripe. So this is where the world is moving towards. We're going towards an embedded fintech kind of a model, and I wouldn't say they would become a competition for existing fintech players. It just opens up our gamut and our window to cater to these demands of all these different types of companies who want to launch fintech services, financial services on their platforms.
Wonderful. So you don't know where the competition will hit you from. Like in the last generation, just we faced the music industry going through the changeover, the camera industry going through changeover. Here is Swiggy and others who are trying to do the embedded banking. Fantastic. On that note, Anurag, you mentioned something about first to card, like there are first to credit segment. What in the name of open banking are you doing if you are not opening bank accounts? How do you treat this as part of banking, and how does this evolve the unserved segment that is the bulge of the pyramid?
So we as a company are more focused towards urban locations where even though the banking penetration has reached, but some of the product penetration, especially on the credit side, have not yet reached to the level it should be. And appreciating India is a very young country and with lots of aspirations, there is a big gap between affordability and aspiration, and one has to finance that if you have to realize the true potential of our consumption story of India. So we are embarked upon solving the consumer credit problem, and the product we've chosen is a credit card because it's a very flexible instrument which allow people to borrow at and as well as have the flexibility to repay and things like that. They can do EMIs and lots of other things. So but we just want to simplify this entire experience of getting the card and managing the the entire journey for consumers, so that credit card is a very, I would say, it's a new product as far as India market is concerned. Though it's a very old product as such across the world, but it has kind of reached a mass adoption in last 3-4 years. And when a lot of consumers are young and they are most of the thing doing mobile, we are kind of working out solutions along with banks to make sure that how can we make this product simple enough for a large number of people to understand and use it effectively. So that's where we're solving for. And it's already a trend and it's a category exists. We're just making sure that the better product wins the adoption curve, and that's what we are doing.
Brilliant. So 20 out of 200 million people have cards is what you had mentioned just before this.
So if you look at the bureau, especially after 2008 crisis, India went to a massive upgrade on their bureau infrastructure. So we have a very, very progressive bureau norms in India where all banks and lenders are supposed to give data. It's a positive bureau country. So we submit data as well as bad as well as good. Proliferation of national IDs like Aadhaar have also, helped people, get, matched much more accurately. And what happens is that, so if you look at the bureau population in India, we're close to 350 plus million Indians in the bureau. And one trivia, by the way, in probably this year or next year, we will be the largest bureau on this planet. We will overtake US as a market. So most probably the next level of credit models should emerge from India because we hold the largest amount of data. So coming from there, even if you take out specialized model like microfinance and business loans, you're still left with around 200 million Indians who have borrowed for retail purposes like mortgages, credit cards, and all. And only 30 million of them have credit cards. This is a very, big, large gap. So, it's a very large risk scored population, which has already been lent by organized financial services. They've served a credit history, so they have a track record. But a product like, credit card, which is a part of day-to-day life across the world, and help people build credit history for long term so that they're ready as and when they have to take a larger, borrowing. That's the gap is still there. Though it's been ramping up quite fast over the last 3-4 years, especially after demonetization, because the card acceptance industry have really grown up. Also, almost every category is getting digitized. I think there is still a gap to be filled on the issuing side, and that's what we help bridge that along with banks.
Absolutely, the credit-hungry consumption story with inaffordability and ambition unstoppable. There is another NBFC saga in the make, which is the over the top of lending. So fantastic with Shashank. What struggles are you helping fix? You used a very interesting word, tailoring the products with different fits and sizes. So would you like to throw some light on this story? And you also said that there are unaffordable SaaS fees that are not working on the cards that probably Anurag would issue to startups. So how are you sorting that segment out, if you could highlight?
Thanks, Anand. Yes, it's interesting times, right? I think our fundamental belief is that when it comes to business owners, small business owners particularly, and even in large companies for the finance functions, we believe that they're underserved, right? I think sales functions have their own Salesforce, massive softwares which help them manage their sales and optimize for sales. Marketing teams have HubSpot, which are taking care of a lot of these things. But in a lot of companies, especially small to medium, right, finance functions are still operating largely on accounting softwares, which captures only a part of the finance. It's equivalent to saying that Salesforce is capturing my one deals, right? That's the thing that's being captured in terms of my accounting software. And when we really look at it, right, I think we break the market into small to medium and large companies. For small to medium, the problem statement ends up coming very closely around ease of business itself. Now, for a business when it's just getting started, I think the fundamental focus is on survival. It's on making sure that they're able to serve the customers and generate value out of it, because without which the company itself will not last. Now, at this point itself, if the business owner has to deal with all the different kind of compliances, the vendor payments, taking care of payroll, at the same time putting their own personal credit cards to, buy softwares like Slack for the company, I think it becomes a lot of burden. And we fundamentally believe that this is an ease of business problem in itself for today's Asian companies. And I think that's what we're looking to solve with RazorpayX, the business banking arm of Razorpay. What we believe is that finance teams are becoming strategic functions largely in a lot of companies. They want to move out of the day-to-day work of tracking transactions, doing reconciliations and managing those pieces. And that's what we fundamentally are doing for businesses. We are giving them software which are tailored for internet companies. Think of a current account software which understands that, hey, majority of your money is going to come from payment gateway. So does it reconciliation for you. It knows that a lot of your vendors are sending you invoices over emails now. And the TDS that needs to be deducted is automatically calculated and paid for you automatically. The challan is available on the platform itself and gives you a corporate card looking at your money flow, which allows you much higher limits and allows you to use it for company expenses where you don't need to give personal guarantees, which has become one key challenge for most businesses and business owners. They need to put in their personal cards, right? So I think that's what we're kind of looking to do. And with large companies, I think the problem statement just goes deeper. We've had companies dealing with thousands of invoices for whom the issue itself is making sure of compliance, right? The taxation compliance and the entire regime around it. Even though we have GST which simplifies these things, still there's a lot of work that needs to happen. And our stories that we're hearing from the market are kind of quite surprising. Most of the accounting companies are still working on Google Drives. So company takes invoices, uploads to a Google Drive, the accountant then comes and looks at those things, looks at your book and spends a lot of these time on these kind of things, which are probably not adding value for the company. And the example that I want to take is this, right? At Razorpay, when the COVID lockdown had struck, we wanted to give payroll to our employees 4-5 days early, right? Help them prepare for the lockdowns and everything. It took the finance teams at least 2 days just to calculate the payroll. But with the payroll software that we have now built, it's one-click job. All you have to do is upload the leaves tracker. That's about it. And the 5 transactions, which is payroll plus the TDS plus PF plus ESI, everything is automated by our software. So what we're really doing is helping with the ease of business for these business categories, helping them focus on their growth while we take care of the finance angles for them.
Wonderful. So with one click, you will obviate what all industries, the banking, the ERPs, the taxations, the salary processing, etc. That's fantastic. And COVID was a great mention, Shashank. We saw the real tasir, the texture of the ecosystem come out strong. And while Anurag did ask me to talk about PayNearby, and I'll take liberty to mention that during this time, the feeling of becoming a national asset was immense, where we were able to orchestrate 500,000 touch points who were working as extension of the banking for our bankers in the country and giving money in the hands of citizens. The government giving cash back, so to say, in the form of any FinTech format which needs a growth. So government gave that cash back to form habit, and people are now very used to going to that credibility augmented retailer, the corner shop, and which is where the neo-banking with assisted model comes. So Mabel covers the mid to large segment. Shashank, you cover the mid and small segment. Anurag, you overlay and empower them with credit. And we at PayNearby look at serving the unserved, underserved, misserved. So effectively, the Venn diagram covers the whole of India here itself. So I think great way forward. In the second round, Mabel, I would want to ask a sharper question. Why not one bank? Why multiple banks do we need for open banking? And you already spoke about something on the saga of the story of the giants and sitting behind as an RFP partner to them. But the Bhagwan, Pujari and Bhakt story was very interesting. I would want to hear it from you for the audience here today.
Okay. So Bhagwan, Pujari and Bhakt, basically God devotee and God and devotee kind of story. That's something about banking alliances that, most of the folks who have done banking alliances would agree, where the very first, interactions with the bank, any bank you take for that matter, it's always around, your bank is God and, you're just someone out there doing something. And then the second phase of banking relationship is when God says, okay, I'm curious, I want to do something, know more on what you're doing. The third part of banking relationship comes where bank says that I can I'm God. I can definitely build 1,000 of you devotees. So why do I care about doing it? And then the fourth phase of realization, or is when banks and other partners of fintech start working together, where God says that while definitely I can create a lot of this, why waste time and reinvent the wheel? You've already done something, then let's just start working together. Now, delving a little on that part, on why just one bank, and why not just one bank. Typically, any neobank to launch just requires one bank to take care of the regulatory compliance, licensing parts of things, and then you don't need to bother around going around partnering with multiple banks. But open banking in India is still in its nascent forms, and not a single bank. A single bank doesn't have all the APIs that are required to build a complete new bank. So while you would have to you technically need only one bank to be a partner, but not everyone has all the APIs. For example, in our case, we have one bank for the current account, but then we have to use some other bank for the cards because the card APIs and Rails are not ready with the with the other bank. So, and hence, we tend to partner with multiple banks, 18 to be precise. So it's a humongous task every time you need to go and do the partnership with the bank, go through the compliances and various norms. Every team would have their own asks. So doing all of this itself is quite painstaking in itself. The third part, of course, is that the customer demand as well is in that direction, where even consumers whom we deal with would want banking from a certain banking partner or cards from a certain banking partner, and hence it makes sense to have multiple banks on the platform.
Fantastic. That was when translated from Hindi to English, you missed the pujari role, the priest role. You said the God and the disciples. But Anurag, what is the role of the priest? And if I may say, when a bank says that they are API ready, what does it really mean? Your experiences around meeting the CEOs and how does it work? Would you throw some light?
So I would say, just taking on what Mabel said, fortunately we arrived at the scene when a lot of banks are already looking for partnerships. So I think one good relation is that most of the banks are open to discussion for partnership. A lot of them have already created team structure to actually support the startup ecosystem, especially on the fintech side. So that's a good journey. We didn't have to face that long challenge that Mabel talked about. And so I would say, different banks are in different journey. Some banks are more API. The APIs are much more ready. Some are still working on. But largely all across, I would say almost every bank is thinking about it and is open about it. And also, what happens is that this is, every bank has their own priority, and like their focus is segments, whether it is current account, savings account, credit, or payments, or insurance, mutual funds, or things like that. So it's a, I would say, medium to long-term journey. And also, especially from a fintech partnership, this integration is a very, very important one, because essentially this is what drives the product to the hands of end consumer. And this takes a lot of time and energy to build. So we need to be really careful in striking as well as maintaining the partnership for long term. So that's what the thing. But I just want to add to here is that what is happening is that I think COVID kind of accelerated some of these thinking. That's for sure. The secondly, even regulator is kind of putting out a lot of I would say initiatives around driving adoption towards how can we bridge the gap between, let's say, consumers wanting the banking services in a more digital form, and how we can be providing that in partnership with that. So on and on, I think it's a journey. I don't think there's an end near, but I would say it's a very, very, I would say, rigorous and, a journey which you have to undertake along with the bank partner. It is one of the most important thing in our business, because the way India open banking is right now is essentially through partnerships. So you have to navigate these things to make the product available to
beyond the partnership teams, like you said, broker or party. So
Yeah.
go to the party for sure.
That's another good that you reminded me, Anand, from our last discussion. So other thing, piece of advice that especially in banking kind of partnerships, the partnership is, it encompasses lots of department within the bank. It is not only with, let's say, one partnership team. You got to deal with the product teams who are actually holding up the end product you want to give. Compliance teams, operations teams for reconciliation, for making an oversight, audit teams. So the advice which I was actually, I think, mentioning is that plan for a long haul, and there won't be a single alliance team which you can strike out partnership. Bank partnerships are much more deeper, and rightly so, because they need to be regulated like that. So we have to deal with lots of entities, and make sure that you're aligning with everybody's interest. And that's the mantra of success.
Alignment is the almighty, and that's a fair note. Shashank, all of us here on the table have the story of Neo Open API Payment Gateway already been there, done that. All of us are reorchestrating, repurposing it. But what does Neo mean, making customer oblivious of where bank is and get banking where they are? Making it oblivious, totally. What you said in the previous thread, I want you to elaborate. And what would it really take to change this chain command where master and servant relation changes, where who is the master and who is the subservient to it? How does open banking change this whole story?
Thanks, Anand. I think a lot of the confusion stems from this fact, right? That I think in India, we've been comparing with some of the Western models, right? Where we look at the Europe model where the banking license is available on a tap. So most of those digital banks, the challenger banks, or the neo banks are actually banks in themselves. That's a model over there. So the general assumption is that a neo bank would mean that the actual bank is completely hidden. It's just the front end phase that you're seeing, right? Which I don't think is going to be the case in India, right? In India, I think we have a very rich fintech ecosystem where these companies and companies like us are working with the banks directly, right? And to the client, it is visible that their money is with a particular bank, right? And that I think adds a lot of the trust factor that these banks, and as Mabel had also kind of alluded to in the start, right? That their strength is in managing this money. Their strength is in keeping this money safe and generating cash out of it, right? And I think that's what is very important for the client to see, that even when these neobanks are coming in, they are not really directly innovating on the way money itself is stored and then grown from different ways and manner, right? I think that part is important for the customers to understand. So what neobanking is really doing is helping clients solve their own particular problems, solving it in a way which is contextual for them. And I think that's what neobanking is going to be about. And when you talk about the master angle over here, right? I think for every single business, at the end of the day, everything starts from the customer, whether it's a bank or whether it's a fintech. We're all here because we're serving the customer's needs. So I think it's always clear that what we have to keep at the forefront is the customer's needs, what they need and require right now to grow their business. I think that's where we'll start from. So the conversations that happen with the banks when we do neo-banking solutioning stems from this itself, that, hey, here is a big set of clients. This is the kind of problem statement that they are facing. This is a very good way that we can solve their problem statement if you and I work together. And here's a co-created product that we want to launch in the market, serving this customer's needs, right? So I think what is good is that everyone understands that it's the customer's problem statement that you're solving for. And that's the opportunity that we are really tackling, which is why we all exist. So I think that becomes the key piece, and all conversations with the bank, whether you do it with the alliance team, with their product teams or whoever, right? I think the center stage is always the customer. That what is the problem that we're solving for them? And that helps us in taking the conversation forward and building solutions. So I think that's really how the neo-banking element is coming up in India, with the banks at the center of it, along with fintech serving the contextual needs of these customers.
Brilliant. So do not compare is a great insight because they are different, and we have our own ecosystem, and which is very rich. Well said. While Bill Gates said banking is important, banks are not. You made it evident that banks' role is important from the perspective of the trust dissemination and compliance facilitation. And while they may help us as a back office of fintechs today, there is a coexistence for all of us. On that note, what would you wish to have one thing from a regulator, starting with Anurag, catching you off guard, not in the same sequence? So what would you want one thing, just a statement, Mabel and then Shashank?
I think, I think I'm happy the way things are shaping up in India. I mean, of course, neo-banking is a new thing, but if you look at, draw the parallels in the way I would say long back, 10 years back, when the PC regulations came in to facilitate transactions beyond branches, or let's say then payment gateway came in, which was again to take the banking to merchants. And I think our regulator is quite progressive. They allow already models where banks can partner, and at appropriate time they keep interjecting with right kind of
I hear you, Anurag. You have it all. You don't need anything. Mabel, what would you want from the regulator?
Well, we definitely have a good regulator. We have a proactive regulator that is, observing a lot of these global models and trying to bring in the best of whatever, other regulators put in other parts of the world into the Indian market. Having said that, it would be good to have some kind of a, outline on, how a bank or a fintech partnership could be. And that would actually take off a lot of rigmarole on, compliance parts. Every single bank you need to partner with, you have to go through the same grind all over again. So some rough outline, even if not a full-fledged guideline, would definitely benefit everyone.
Wonderful. That's a fair ask. And with the recent guidelines coming up on the security on the payment services, I'm sure Reserve Bank and other regulatory bodies in the country would step up and help us with this request. Shashank, what would you want?
I think overall the regulators have been doing a fantastic job, right? But I think the main concerns that have always been for them and the primary focus has been on the consumer side, right? I think that's been the major focus. I think one thing that we would probably want to look at is that how does the business side of things also grow along with the regulations? For example, video KYC is something that is present in the market now for the consumer side of things, right? But there's still lack of clarity in terms of how this will be done for businesses. It's still not live for businesses right now. And I think that is something that would really help the ecosystem. That's some of the innovation that's happening on the consumer side. If we can get more clarity in terms of how the business lens can be applied to it when the businesses are being served from a banking perspective. And I think that, same innovation around video KYCs and all of those things, if it's made available on the business front, I believe that India can really, really make the ease of doing business significantly better for a lot of these upcoming companies now.
Certainly, and that's an evolving thing and fair assessment and request ask. Anurag, I would align with you and I would want to make a statement that our regulator is super awesome. It has future-proofed India with ATM on one side, with Pratyakshame Pramanam, the Aadhaar on the other hand, where 115 million debit cards go out of system, people are able to access their money with these 10 cards embedded. This is embedded banking. Actually, in true sense, Mabel, if I may take your word from there, you don't need a card, you don't forget the PIN. And then UPI takes the cake away. It's an overriding enabler. The guidelines are there. The regulations are there. We just got to read them. The regulator really wants us to do a lot, and they have enabled, empowered. Read the guidelines, the one-page note which comes. It takes about 2 weeks to 4 weeks to draft that. And it's a fantastic way forward, a very forward-looking regulator and the whole ecosystem with Department of Financial Services or Ministry of Finance. So compliments to India's story that's growing well on the back of this robust ecosystem support.
I just want to add, so let's say, even in the recent times, like RBI spoke about setting up SROs where, industries can, regulate, kind of build out a consensus around things like, how can you handle customer grievances better, or how can you regulate better so that, a regulator can engage with entities much better. Even the current IWG, report came in that talked about like, proportion-based regulations, which is a very, very good thing. And I think we have been talking about it in this sector that, the regulation should be aligned with the proportion rather than, the form, of the entity. And if at all more banks come in, there'll be even more, we definitely need more and more banking services to go down much deeper, and more competition will just drive this thing further. So I think I would just say that we're in the good direction. We just need to make sure that we keep executing along the lines.
Wonderful. So I'll skip this part. You have already spoken about what do we want from the banks. In some or the other form, we have covered it. If you were to do a quick poll, not in alphabetical order, not in ranking, which are the top 5 banks that you would say are the go-to partner banks for the fintech ecosystem support? Who are there, who are ready, who are capable, and who enable? 5 banks. If you pause longer, I will make it 3.
Tough question, but I would just say, so it depends on product to product, frankly speaking, and people have different APIs. So I would refrain myself to.
They are not ringing as name of the banks, Anurag. Don't be political. 5 good names where the banks people could look up to.
I think,
by the way, this is a tricky question. I've been requesting the Digital Fifth and others in the ecosystem to start publishing a score so that people know how to improve and people can go to the banks who are enabling. That's about the intent. So if you would like to take this opportunity to tell the names, I would take the lead if I would to say Yes Bank, IndusInd Bank, RBL Bank, ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, Equitas, Federal Bank. We don't work with a couple of them, but yet awesome. Axis Bank, Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. The newer ones are more hungry, and of course the old technology savvy partner banks are brilliant. So I don't know what's your concurrence on it. We have 4-5 more minutes. We don't have any questions from the audience. So back to you, Anurag. 5 names.
So I think I would agree with your list. Probably add a few more. Definitely banks like IDFC first, as well as banks like even we are looking at even the large bank side. You see that some of the partnerships they've taken in the recent past, like Bank of Baroda have done partnership with Fisdom, and they're doing quite well. So we are seeing that you're right. Largely the hunger is more on the some of the banks, but even almost everyone is looking to join the bandwagon. But I think the list what you mentioned is the comprehensive one, and I just added few 2 names to that.
Great, and I agree with you. Akhil Handa is doing amazing work at Bank of Baroda. Fantastic drive by the bank, and many other PSU banks. State Bank APIs are fantastic in places at times.
I want to add DCP to that, because they are also doing lots of partnerships and supporting a lot of FinTech ecosystem.
Absolutely, Prasanna and Damodar, great combination under Murli's leadership. Fantastic guys, certainly. Mabel, you have 18 banks. How would you go through this round of 5?
I've already covered all the ones that I have partnered with. So it's all there. The 9 that you've named, pretty much the same list that I have. But if there is one ask from, I know we skipped this question, if there's one ask that we could do from the banks, where everything works very differently in your sandbox environments, and when it actually goes into production, it is another story altogether. So if we could, if the banks could actually stitch in both environments in the same format, it makes it a little more easier for us fintechs to do the integrations much faster.
That's a fair ask. Yes, absolutely. Shashank?
Yeah, I think in terms of the banks itself, so we work in more than 20-30 banks all put together when we look at our payments and banking business, right? And we work with this in a direct capacity. On the neo-banking front, some of the names I think you've already kind of taken, right? So we work very closely with RBL, ICICI, Yes Bank, Axis. These have all been fantastic partners in terms of enabling the innovation in this ecosystem itself. And I think there's a lot of work that they're doing along with the companies like us to co-create some of these products, right? I think which is the need of the hour, because these APIs, while they serve for specific purposes right now, as we go into the broader objective of building more of these services, I think these banks have been very open towards building some of these services, particularly for specific use cases, which has been fantastic for the entire ecosystem.
Very good. On that note, with Axis Bank tagline "Dil se Open" is really a warm welcome to India into the open banking, and great amount of leadership under Sameer there, and people joining in from world over into that bank, shaping up fantastic. So what we see here, if I were to tell to the audience, is again the Venn diagram. India is safe with Anurag, Mabel, Anand and Shashank taking care of the India overlapping the use cases. I think India would reach to the financial liberation sooner than we would have planned. There are debates about the viability of certain networks, certain infrastructure assets which have been laid in the past in the wake of the digital growth with the UPI, be it with the cap, though the momentary early reaction, but be it with that, NPCI is at the front and leading the whole bandwagon of the neo Rebank India theme beautifully. And what have we to worry here? And we, on that note, would thank you all once again, and Singapore FinTech Festival for inviting us to this panel. Thank you once again.